This is Standard Office Procedures, the podcast that helps professionals live and grow through culture, communication, and candor. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Standard Office Procedures podcast. I am your host, Grace, and with me as always is Shannon. Hi, Shannon.
Hello.
And we are talking today about what to do if you're having a bad day at work.
Yikes.
I feel like this is topical, Shannon.
I'm not having a bad day at work. I'm just having a weird day in general.
I'm okay with that.
And it is 10 a.m., so there's a lot to come.
You're in a weird mood, which I kind of selfishly enjoy. I think you get funnier and more acerbic when you're in a weird mood. So anyway, we're going to talk about how to...
I get more inappropriate when I'm in a bad mood.
Which is what I like. We're going to talk about how to turn that frown upside down.
I just slapped myself and pinched my cheeks to get ready for this podcast.
Did it help? Is that our first suggestion?
I'm in a great mood now. Let's go.
She's better. Everything's fine. So we're going to talk about 8 strategies to turn your day around. Some of these you may have heard before, but we're going to go into some science and some facts and figures.
I love statistics.
Oh, well, you're in for a buckle in.
Like 68% of people that have a bad day at work are able to turn their frown upside down.
After listening to the Standard Office Procedures podcast. Actually, it's more like 98% because we're awesome. All right, so let's start by talking about the fact that it's important to remember that bad days are inevitable, right? They happen to everybody. It's just you're going to have a bad day every now and then. I think we've all had one of those days where like you're running late, you hit traffic, it starts to rain, your heel breaks. You know, it's just like it feels like you cannot catch a break. Yeah. And there's a part of your spirit that just crumbles by like 9:45 when you're like, you know what? It's going to be a bad day. I've just decided to like throw in the towel. I'm done with it. And I think it's important when you're having these days to remember that it's just one day. Right?
Yeah. My best friend told me one time I was having kind of a low point and I was like, gosh, so off today. Everything was so bad. She was like, you won't know when you have rock star days if they're all rock star days.
I like that outlook. Like, you know, what's funny about this is that I actually just had a conversation with my classmates about burnout and about like, one of my classmates said, you must be exhausted. And I kind of laughed and I was like, I mean, I feel like I don't do more than anyone else, but I'm repeatedly getting that feedback from people. You seem like you might be doing too much. You seem like you overcommit and all this stuff. And so she said, you can't give 100% every single day. Yeah. If you give 100% every single day, then how are you going to have a great day?
Exactly.
You have to give most of your days, not some, most of your days should be between 70 and 80%. And then every now and then you give 100% and it's a great day. And then if you have a day where you're at 40 or 30%, that's okay. Like that's normal. That is human nature. You cannot give 100% every single day. Yeah. So if you are somebody with a perfectionist mindset, which we've spoken about on this podcast, which a lot of us tend to be professionals, give yourself some grace, reframe your mind and remember that this is going to happen. You're going to have a bad day. Things are not going to go your way. And maybe it's not just silly things like, oh, you know, I ran late. Maybe it's like I really bombed that meeting or that presentation did not go the way I thought it would or, you know, whatever, that meeting went poorly.
Or I had 3 very long emails that I didn't know how to respond to.
I feel like that's also what's happening today. Exactly though. About? But that's exactly right. Where it's like, look, this is going to pass. And then I always like the tactic of like pull your view out a little bit, like take a higher look at it. Like, okay, does this really matter that much in the scheme of things? Like, yes, it's very urgent right now. That meeting that you didn't do a great job at is a big deal in this moment. Is it going to matter in a week? Maybe. Is it going to matter in a month? Probably not. Yeah. In a year, everyone's forgotten about it. Good chance, you know? Obviously, there are exceptions to everything, but in general, these things are just little blips. Yeah. It's one day.
This too shall pass, as my mama always told me.
Thank you, Jean. I love your mother. All right. So number 2 is to break your day into parts. So I really like this one because I never considered it before, right? If you're having a bad day, the whole day is shot. I think we tend to think in these kind of absolutes, like it's a bad day. It's 10 a.m. and things are going poorly. So the whole day is ruined. Yeah. Think of your day in little fourths. Like you have the morning, you have the afternoon, you have your evening, and you have nighttime, right? So maybe your morning is ruined. Maybe you had a bad morning.
My morning is not going well.
Yeah. So maybe, Shannon, your morning is not going
But that
great.
doesn't mean the rest of my day has to go
You might have a
poorly.
good afternoon. And if you find out that you have a good afternoon and a good evening and a good night, then that morning is 25% of your day. And like you had a pretty good day, all things considered. You know?
I think it's one thing that really helps me on days like this. And I've already started doing this in my brain is like, what do I have to look forward to today? And that can be really hard when it's like, I'm so jam-packed.
Yes.
I have a million things going on. I actually have to leave early today, which is very unfortunate because I have so much work to do. But I have to go take my daughter to an audition. And I know that I'm going to have like an hour where I can sit in my car. So like, I'm really looking forward to that. I think I'm going to take myself a nice snack.
Good for you. Get like a fancy
That'll
coffee
be nice.
drink.
And also I was looking, we actually don't have anything going on tonight, which is so rare. I
Oh,
think
you
I'm
mean
going
your
to
family?
order a pizza
Yes.
and phone it in and have a nice night on the
Look
couch.
at this. So your 1/4 of your day, your morning, is
Yeah.
not going great.
It's not great.
the best.
I don't know how the afternoon's going to go either.
Maybe also not great, potentially, just judging on everything that I've heard. But your afternoon and your evening, your evening and your nights,
Yeah.
and like they could potentially go very well.
I think it's important to give yourself things to look forward to. This is really hard on days that are jam-packed. And it's
Yes.
like, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this. And sometimes I will even give myself something to look forward to at like 9 p.m.
Yeah, which is
like
effective.
at 9 p.m., I'm going to do X thing that I know is good for me and
Yep.
give myself that to look forward to.
Yeah, I think compartmentalization here is also kind of a key part of this. That's not, we always base our episodes off of blog posts, and we didn't mention this in the blog post, but I do think there's something to be said for being able to like leave work at work, and that is one way to kind of de-stress when you walk into your house, right?
Yeah.
I know that's easier said than done oftentimes, and depending on your field and what's going on at work right now, that may be more difficult. However, if you can make a conscious effort, right? Again, that mentally pulling back and looking at this day as a puzzle piece in a much larger puzzle, you're like, okay, can I just put the piece in the puzzle now and say, I'm going to there's nothing I can do about it now, right? It's 6 p.m. I'm at home. I'm with my kids or my dog or, myself, and I have Netflix here or whatever you want to do. It's done. Leave it behind you and make sure you have a good evening and night.
I think it's really important to, like, say you have a terrible meeting, you're having a really bad day or something bad happens at work, and that can really throw you off a lot. I think it's important to feel your feelings and process those feelings. That doesn't mean you have to do it right now.
That's a great point.
All right, I'm going to follow the part about this like tomorrow night or like tonight when I get home or whatever. But like, I am just going to set that aside and move on with my day and compartmentalize, like you said, break your day up into parts. And like the part when I really process these feelings is later.
Is not now. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about actually that concept in a minute. So another suggestion for turning your day around, I know we talk about this and I know sometimes it might seem so basic, but it's so important, is to practice breathing exercises. So focus on your breathing. Your mood is directly connected to your breath, which means that breathing deeply and intentionally, so sitting down and being like, I'm going to take a couple of like deep cleansing breaths, that's one of the most natural ways to improve your mood. Are you doing it right now? So I know you're all thinking about breathing right now. That happens every time somebody talks about it. But just so you know, like stress, anxiety, anger, these emotions all trigger our fight or flight response, whether we are aware of it or not, right? If you're really stressed, if you're really frustrated, if you're really angry, if you're really, whatever, any kind of negative emotion, your body is sending like adrenaline and cortisol, which is speeding up your heart. It's causing you to take quicker and more shallow breaths. Again, even if you're not cognizant of it, even if it doesn't feel like you're breathing hard, right? You're not sitting at your desk just like that's weird. That was some ASMR for you.
But when you do stop, like right now, like when I do stop and like take a deep breath, I'm like, oh man, I really have been breathing shallow.
Yeah. And so intentional breathing and these exercises, they give our brain this oxygen that we're lacking in these stressful moments, and they calm down that fight or flight response. And it literally clears our head, and it enables us to see things more clearly and to make better judgment calls, to assess the situation and say, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe, maybe I'm making a bigger deal of this than it needs to be because I'm so upset. I'm so, wound up. So when you breathe deeply, so this is kind of like a how-to, right? So like, how do I take good cleansing breaths? So if you think you're breathing deeply, but your shoulders are still rising and falling, that means you're not doing it deeply enough. You want to focus on your stomach expanding. So you want to keep your shoulders relaxed. I'm doing it too. So we do this together, guys,
right now.
if you're listening. So keep your shoulders relaxed, and you want to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. I feel like I'm teaching yoga. It should be a little bit longer than what I just did. And one technique that I really love is called box breathing. have we talked about this on the podcast? Yeah. The Navy SEALs use it, right? So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us.
It's like a 3 count or 4 count.
It is. So you count. So the way you box breathe, and this is very, very good, right? This is an easy one to remember, and it's also incredibly effective. So if you think about box breathing in conjunction with keeping your shoulders relaxed and letting your belly expand, you breathe in for 4 counts. So deep breath in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you hold. So when I see deep breath in 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean you take, like, you are breathing in for the duration of that 1, 2, 3, 4 count. So, and then once you've breathed in, you hold here for 4. And then you exhale for 4. And then you hold here for 4, not taking any breath in. And then you do it again.
That's
right?
hard.
It is hard, especially that point where you've
The holding.
exhaled all of your oxygen. Yeah, that feels a little bit weird for our bodies. but you're giving your body a chance to kind of reset, and for those like that adrenaline and that cortisol to like recede back. I don't know where it goes. Anyway, so that's just one option.
I don't know where it goes.
I'm not a scientist. All right. So another option for turning your day around, and I like this one. I don't know how immediate you can make it. I do feel like you could do it anywhere, is to vent in a journal. So it doesn't have to be a journal, right? Basically, process your feelings by writing them down, right? So kind of like Shannon was saying a moment ago, you don't have to process your feelings in that moment. If you're feeling very overwhelmed and you're like, I don't have the capacity for this right now because I have another meeting, or I have, work that I have to get done, or I have to stay in the office, so I can't completely fall to pieces right now. That's fine. But writing down some of your feelings is a way, like if you think about crying as a way to release emotion, which is what it is, it's very good for you to cry. It's like cleansing. Writing is another way to kind of release those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a little bit less, visually like I'm having a bad day. You can kind of contain, your perception, I guess, or whatever I'm trying to say, your image. People don't have to know you're having a bad day. And you don't have to write by hand. This isn't like the 1800s. You can go on your computer and I do this all the time. I'll open an email draft. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not a document that's saved on my computer. I don't put an email address in the to because I don't want to actually accidentally send it. But I'll open an email draft and I'll write out, like if I'm angry at somebody, I will write out an email to them and be like, this is why I'm angry at you. This is what I think you did.
How
whatever.
many times have you written me an email?
Honestly, never.
You're a liar.
No, I haven't. I've written Owen several, but I never send them because oftentimes what I find is like I'm really hot, right? I'm really heated, and I'll write this email, and it's not always like dear so and so. Sometimes it's just like I'm upset, and here's why, and here's what I think happened, and then I'll sit with it and I'll reread. Like I'll let some time pass, maybe an hour, maybe a day, and I'll reread it, and I'm like, that was a little much, Grace.
I really like, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but Day One is an app for your phone. There's lots of journaling apps that are super simple, but I like Day One because you can just open it and jot a couple things down and close it. And like, I never even go back and look at what I wrote, but I'll do this a lot of times. It's nice to have on my phone because I do like to journal by hand as well, especially when I'm trying to work through my thoughts about something. But if I just want to get something out of my head and I have my phone with me, I can even do it like sitting between meetings.
Exactly.
Or I do this sitting on the couch at night. It's like I'm tired and I'm annoyed, but I don't really want to put the effort in journaling, and I will just open up a little entry and jot it down and be done.
And I think that's great because I do think that there's a level of kind of, at least for me, and I've talked to friends who experience similar things, there's like a level of anxiety in writing down your uncensored thoughts in a journal. Like, what if somebody finds it,
Yeah.
And I know that, like, that's on them. They shouldn't be snooping. But also, like, well, you really can't deny what's in your own handwriting, you know? Like, I did write that I hated you and wished you worked somewhere else. Like, that's pretty harsh, and you can't really come back from that. So I understand that sort of anxiety and fear about being very honest. But for venting in a journal to be effective, you have to be able to not censor yourself.
Right.
So whatever medium you feel most comfortable doing that in, whether it is an email draft or an app like you have, Shannon. So, if your phone's locked, right? Nobody's going to be able to get to that. Or just like a note on your phone in the notes app. I do that often. I'll just write down ideas or, sometimes little rants and stuff. But you have to be able to get it all out. Like you have to be able to be honest to yourself, to be able to feel like, okay, I've kind of cleansed myself of that.
Absolutely.
Rage.
I think that's the crux of it, is being honest. Don't hold back. Don't be nice for the sake of being nice. Also, just say what you think, and it's okay if you don't even really mean it. You just
And it's okay if you're biased because you're you, right? You're going to be on your own side, hopefully. And if you're not, go to therapy. But I do feel like this is one thing that I do, speaking of therapy, I tend to do in therapy sessions with my therapist is like, if I'm very upset over how an altercation went or a conversation, and there's obviously two people involved at least, I will be trying to like say, well, I did say this and they did say this. Like I'm trying to make sure she gets a holistic view of the situation so that I'm not being biased and I'm not misrepresenting the other person. And my therapist was like, Grace, just be biased. Like this is your hour to talk about your feelings. Ugh. We're not processing their feelings here. Yes, don't lie and say, don't make stuff up or fabricate. But if you feel like in this situation, your boss was completely unfair, they attacked you or a coworker, just say that. And then you and your therapist can work through it. Or if it's in your journal, you can write that down and you can be like, they were so mean to me. They were so out of line. And then maybe the next day you're like, okay.
I mean, that's part of processing those feelings, right? Is confronting that I am angry. I am sad. I am upset. I am frustrated. And then once you've processed the raw emotion, you can get to the meat of it. So that's why I think that's so important. Because if you don't process it, it's still going to be there. You're still going to be a little angry. Yeah. It's going to just sit there and fester.
And you can also you can learn about yourself if you're honest, right? You can start to see, especially if you're in a consistent journal or if you do this enough, you can start to identify patterns. Like, okay, I'm actually going through this at work right now. I always like hesitate. I don't want to overshare, but I don't think of myself as like a big crier. I cry a normal amount. It's like I never cry, but I have cried at work over the last 3 months more than ever in my whole career. And it's been bizarre. And I'm trying to figure out like, why am I so upset?
Yeah.
I've identified, because I've written about it,
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to identify one specific trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I come apart at work, there's one thing, there's one person and there's one tone that gets me there. Like that. And the thing is, that's not to say that that person is wrong.
It's just the trigger.
And I'm learning, okay, why? What about me what about my past? What about my, predilections makes me so sensitive to this person in this way?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to learn and grow. Like that's what I'm now working on and we're going to talk about circle of control in just a second, but like I can't control how this person speaks to me. And I certainly can't control that we have to speak to one another. So I can control how I react to it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn that. So again, that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but through journaling and through being honest about your feelings with yourself, you can learn about yourself and you can identify areas of growth.
Well, I think as an aside to journaling, where you're journaling, writing down, feelings and processing emotions and reasoning and things, there's also a flip side, which is documentation.
Yes.
So if you're having a really terrible day and you need, this is, I think something we'll talk about with circle of control, you need to feel some kind of control over the situation. Just documenting when something happened is very helpful, because then later on you can, use that documentation. If it's the same person, the same thing, like 10 times, that's bad, or the same triggers that cause you to not have a good day,
right.
You've got documentation of like, why am I feeling like this at work today?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've written it down and you can reflect back later the next time you're having a bad day, it's like, oh, this happened again the last time, XYZ.
And then you can either work on avoiding that or figuring out better ways to handle it. Like it's just that self-awareness is so key here. So another way to improve your bad day, and this one I love and we touched on it, is to understand what's inside your circle of control. So we've talked a lot about circle of control on this podcast. I think it's really important.
It's because it's like the crux of
It's the crux of everything. It's the crux of, especially, I think we talk about it so much in the context of professional life, because so much of our working environment is outside of our control, right? At home, in your relationships, like your intimate sort of familial and romantic relationships, there's a lot more that's kind of within your control. You can choose which friends you have. You can choose who you date. You can choose the house you live in and what it looks like and all these factors. At work, you generally don't get to choose your boss. You don't get to choose what the office looks like. You don't always get to choose your coworkers, So you have to remember that when you are having a bad day at work and you're getting really wrapped up, and I had to be told this just yesterday where I was really bent out of shape about something. I was like, my kind of mentor was like, okay, is that in your control? Like, can you change that? And I was like, well, no. And she said, what can you change? And I had to think, I can change my reaction to it. I can change how I'm like pushing against it so hard. Like instead of pushing against things that you cannot change, which is going to exhaust you, that's going to wear you out, that's going to give you a lot of bad days, like take a step back and look at, okay, I can control these things, right?
Yeah, I think it's everything. It's everything.
It is everything.
I don't have anything to comment because you said it all.
I said it
all.
Good
job.
I do feel like we could go much deeper into what exactly this means. But we've done it so many times.
We've talked about it so much.
Yeah. So
I do think, again, like you're having a bad day because X. Well, was the traffic out of your control? Was your kid being up all night out of your control?
The
like
rain, that's out of your control?
Was your boss being in a bad mood because he's got other stuff going on out of your control?
Which is a great point that you brought up that I don't think is in the blog post, but it's a great one, is other people's moods affect us, right?
Yeah.
Human beings are social animals. We're not impervious to the moods and the signals that we receive from other people. And so much of our communication is nonverbal. And so if somebody walks in and you're like, oh, hey, good to see you. And they're like, yeah, hey, very clipped, very dismissive. That can sort of set that ball rolling towards like, okay, it's not going to be, that puts you on a path. So I would say what is in your circle of control, you cannot control their mood. You cannot control how they speak to you. You can control how you let that impact you, right? Like if Shannon's saying to me, if I say, hey, Shannon, and she's like, yeah, hey, and she's mad, like what I would tend to do is think, oh my God, she's upset with me. What have I done? And then I go on like a little spiral. Here's the thing. Shannon's mood is outside of my control. If I know, or I'm fairly certain that I've not done anything to Shannon that would offend her,
well,
I gotta let
that go.
She
hasn't told you.
That's the big thing. And you always remind me of that, is that if somebody hasn't told you that they're upset, then it's not your responsibility to address that.
Exactly.
Now, if it's a close, like Shannon is my very close friend. So like if I always feel like I can say, hey, are you okay? Are you upset with me? And then you'll generally be like, no, I'm not. And maybe that day you say, no, I'm not. I'm actually really upset about this and this and this. But maybe you just say, no, it's fine. Right.
Yeah.
But you're obviously still upset. Okay. I'm going to make a choice there to say, all right, she told me she's not upset with me. I asked, I did my due diligence. She still seems upset with me, but you know what? I wash my hands of this because I cannot control this.
You can't control that.
I cannot make her have a confrontation. I cannot make her tell me about her feelings. And trying to do that is going to exhaust you and is certainly going to exacerbate that bad day.
I also want to talk a little bit. Sometimes our bad days at work are because we are feeling like we're not doing a good job, right?
Oh my God.
Or we're not doing good enough, or we can't keep up, or we're not smart enough, or we don't know how to do the things we're supposed to do. I think that can be a big source of inner conflict, and that can cause us to have bad days. If you go into a meeting, you just feel like an idiot, and you walk out and you're like, oh my God, right? So be nicer to yourself, and also understand like what is in your control. You cannot just automatically know all the things and be great, but you can go make some plans, start, doing some personal development work. You can control those things and getting better and improving, right? And so sometimes if we feel like I'm not where I want to be and it's just impossible to get there, that's not true. It's just not true. You know that you can work on those things and just accept that it's not going to happen overnight, but you are in control of making the decision to like make some plans and start working on some stuff.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I'm really running up against lately is this sense of frustration with my own.
Was that big, huge smile you had while I was
talking?
Well,
I was just like more of a grimace, like that sense of like, I'm not doing a good job. For me, I've worried that like, for me, I struggle with clarity, right? I'm doing this job there's never been one before at this company. There's not many locally directors of culture. It's kind of a newer job and which is exciting and great. But also I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
How do I fill my time? How do I make sure that I'm getting in my like 40 to 50 hours a week and being a team player and, supporting the team? And I'll go to my boss, Owen, and I'm like, hey, am I doing a good job? And he's like, yeah, what? Look at your goals. We have, we use project management software to track all of our goals. My goals are on track. I'm furthering them every week. And yet I sit and I just like wind myself into a tizzy thinking about how I'm not doing a good job or I'm not doing enough or I'm not qualified or I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And nobody else in this entire company is worried about it.
I mean, it's funny because I was telling Grace this, like Grace's job is unique in that her job is to make like the ideal work environment for all of us. And that is an impossible task.
It's easy.
Right? It's an impossible task. And it's not something that will happen overnight, but it is something that could be improved on, a little bit at a time, whether that's through Grace personally or through the work that she's doing in the company. Right. So that's another example of like, what can Grace do? What is in Grace's circle of control and what is not?
Yeah. And what is not in my control is, and this is what I forget often, is like, why isn't everyone at work happy? Oh no, they're not happy. I failed, right? Their moods are not in my control. Right. I cannot control that. And I need to listen to this podcast every morning when I wake up. All right. Another way to change your bad day, and I love this one, I think it's a great one, is to listen to happy music.
Honestly, yes.
It's a great one. And so before, I know it seems really simplistic, but let's talk about some science. So music is processed. Music is processed directly by our amygdala. And this is the part of our brain that manages our moods and emotions, right? So like it's basically like a direct line to adjusting your mood. And it boosts the brain's production of dopamine, which is the chemical that helps relieve that anxiety and sadness. So it kind of chases away that cortisol and that adrenaline. So it's like just this chemical thing that we can do that is a direct line to like improving your mood. And when we say happy music, like obviously music that makes you happy, right?
Right.
So you don't have to be listening to like upbeat, peppy pop. If that's not your thing, studies show that even sad music boosts your mood. Like if that's what makes you feel good, that's your thing. Listen to that.
If you like gangsta rap, like more power to you.
At it.
I think if you go on Spotify or lots of music streaming services, they have like you can search for playlists by moods. I think that could be useful. Like maybe just sometimes we want to zone out to music that we know and playlists that we have put together. But sometimes, hopping over to a different playlist that somebody has curated can also be good because it's going to fire off some different stuff in our brains. So if I'm looking for, upbeat music that doesn't have words, I can find that. If I'm looking for just like down and dirty, just like, I gotta get some stuff done. You can find that too. Yeah.
Spotify has a
down
playlist,
dirty.
Down and dirty. Spotify has a genre called Focus that I love.
Yeah.
So if you click into Focus as a genre, there's like a bajillion different types, right? There's like peaceful piano, there's lo-fi cafe, there's like there's jazz, there's all kinds of like usually instrumental with no lyrics, playlists that are there to help you focus. Alternately, just go into your own playlist. Like I didn't know this here. I love music genres. So listen to my top music genres. Shoegazing.
What?
Yeah, shoegazing is a genre. Melancholy,
That sounds
dream pop, hyper pop. I don't know what that means. Trop pop.
and
lots of
Broadway
pops.
musicals.
Absolutely
I'm just
not.
kidding.
And then piano music. I listen to a lot of like weird, I wouldn't even say classical because it's not like I'm refined and I'm listening to like Beethoven and Mozart. I'm listening to like cello covers of pop music. So that's all my stuff. What is shoegazing? Have you heard of that?
I don't know. Is that like the kind of thing like people that look at their shoes and walk around? What is that?
I guess maybe.
It's like a wandering thing. What is that?
I don't know. I have a couple bands that I love that were categorized as shoegazing.
Sounds like something my daughter would come to me and be like, oh, this aesthetic, it's so shoegazing. And I'd be
sounds
like,
exactly right.
What are you talking
I love
about?
the fact that Georgia would use the word aesthetic because I know she would. The Standard Office Procedures podcast is presented by Blue Summit Supplies. We're an online office supply store that puts you at the forefront of our focus by offering new career-building resources every single week. Sign up for our newsletter and visit our blog at bluesummitsupplies.com for free downloads, tools, and tips to make your job easier and more fun. All right, our next tip for improving a bad day, and this is a really great one, is to ditch the toxic positivity. So toxic positivity is becoming kind of like a buzz phrase lately. And it's interesting because it's the flip side of the like very popular of the last few years, good vibes only, right? Like good vibes only, no bad days, super happy all the time. I'm just like a happy-go-lucky gal. Like I just love to be happy. That's not realistic. No. And that mentality is so toxic.
And it causes so much pressure. It makes us feel like if we're having a bad day, that like we've done something wrong and it is our fault. And like we are failing to have good vibes only, no bad days.
And I will say that this is generally women. Society pressures women to be pleasant, right? Like our identities are generally like, oh, is she nice because she smiles and she greets you first and she's like happy to see you and happy to help and happy to serve. Like that's how we define like a good woman. And especially this like toxic positivity attitude, I think that generally women are given more flack for like being a little bit dour or down in the dumps. It's very much like, what's wrong? You know, like be happy, turn that frown upside down, you know, like just good vibes only. And like, that's not realistic. And also that's just smile is so the worst. But I do feel like the totality of human experience, right? You have to have good days and bad days because that's how you know that you're experiencing like life to the fullest. And also it's unhealthy to force yourself to only be happy all the time because it's not real. I don't care how great your life is and how wonderful you are, which I'm sure most of you guys are. Like I'm sure that you deserve many, many good days. But even if you have the happiest, best life, you're going to have some days where you're just not clicking. You're not firing all cylinders. You know, somebody rubs you the wrong way, something happens, be sad.
Yeah.
I'm not saying wallow.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you're having a bad day, let yourself feel it. Maybe use some of the techniques we talked about here, journal about it a little bit, you know, break it up into quarters and say, okay, I'm not having a whole bad day. I'm just having a bad morning. Okay, now it's also a bad afternoon, but I still have the evening and the night, you know, but let yourself have that instead of saying, no, I don't have bad days.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to power through and smile and be extra happy because you know what's going to happen?
You're going to crash.
Yeah.
You're going to implode.
You're going to implode.
And I also think that you're setting an unrealistic standard for other people. Like I have struggled with this myself in the past where it's like, I am generally a pleasant person. I'm generally in a good mood to be at work. And like, I don't want anybody to see that I'm in a bad mood because I'm known for being in a good mood, you know? And sometimes that can cause extra pressure on you if you know that you're that kind of person. People see you that way to just show up and be in a bad mood one day. And everybody's like, oh my God, what is wrong? You know, and they freak out. And so this is why I think it's so important to be more realistic about your moods. I'm not saying go in and stomp around when you're in a bad mood. I am saying accept to yourself, it's okay to have a bad day, not having a great day. I can still be a pleasant person.
Yes.
But not be like over the top making everybody else comfortable just because I'm not
You
doing
don't
well.
exist to please other people.
Yeah.
You do not exist to please other people. Hey, one more time. You don't exist to please other people.
To please other people.
You don't. You exist for yourself, right? First and foremost. If you're a parent, I get it. That desire to be like, but my children, they come first. Nope. Put your own oxygen mask on. You exist for your own self. Everything else is great and they're important too. But first and foremost, your own moods matter. Especially, here's the thing. Your own moods don't have to matter to everybody, right? They're not going to. But your moods and your reactions to things should be the most important to you. So if you are having a bad day, I had to learn this too, Shannon, because like you're saying, I'm pretty talkative. I'm pretty chatty. And I found that on days where I wouldn't be like, hey, how are you? When I wouldn't start the conversations, basically, people would either get upset with me and be like, oh, well, you were mad at me yesterday. And I was like, no, I wasn't. Like I had some stuff going on. I just wasn't in the mood. Or it would cause like oh, is Grace okay? Like, does she seem off to you? And so like you were saying, I had to kind of learn to break away from my own sort of established pattern of being super aggressively like
all the time
charming and delightful, which was kind of a swing and a miss. I'm not always charming and delightful. But to being like, look, I'm more even keel now. Like now if I come into the office and I'm not super chatty, people don't comment on it because I feel like I've made like a more of an equilibrium.
I comment on it.
You do. You're always like,
but I know. I can just tell by looking at you. You could come in and be like, hey, how's it going? And all smiles and like, I know.
See right through me. That's actually a great point too, though, is that people know every human being can recognize disingenuity. And you might not know why somebody, like, I don't know why this person seems fake or like, you know, not genuine to me. I just know that something seems off and that makes people uncomfortable. Like if you are like a fake smile is the most uncomfortable expression of all time, like a grimace, like it turns into basically like something's wrong. It's like that uncanny valley where like, I think you're smiling, but your eyes don't match and that creeps me out almost. So yeah, no, you're just actually smiling. It doesn't work. You're just cute. But I do think that's important to remember is like, you may think that you're tricking everybody, but you're probably
be yourself.
Not. Be
Man,
yourself.
Be yourself. I think you can be a pleasant individual at work and still be yourself.
100%. Yeah. Like Shannon said, if you're in a bad mood, don't take this advice as to be like, I'm going to make everyone else have a bad day. Like that's not it.
Or I'm just going to wallow. Like, say, break that into your night
that's
quadrant.
For your evening. Yeah.
But it's okay to not be like tip top. Oh my gosh, everything's so great all the time. And don't expect that of other people because you know, it goes both ways.
Yeah. Also, it's okay to give 40% one day. Just remember that. All right. Our last piece of advice, and this one kind of makes me giggle because we talk about pottying, but it's to listen to your body. So I love this one because I think that, and we've all heard the expression hangry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like there are so many physical factors. Obviously, our mind and our body are inextricably linked, right? If we are feeling some type of way physically, it's going to impact our mood, even if we don't know it. I always think about what with both my kids, both my pregnancies, I didn't know I was pregnant, but my body was telling me like, you're pregnant. Like obviously without saying it, but it was like, you're tired, you're in a bad mood. Like, and when I found out, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I wasn't like, what? This is shocking. And so similarly, if you have a couple of things going on physically, you might not be in the best mood. And one of those is eating. I think oftentimes we underestimate how important it is. And I don't mean like to eat food. I mean like if you're accustomed to eating breakfast every single morning, right? And you don't one morning and you think, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm going to eat at 11. Your body is used to getting that food at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever. And it's going to be pissed that it's not getting its usual stuff at 9 in the morning. So maybe you're just in like kind of a worse mood. And eating will be like such an instantaneous way to turn that around. Like,
did you forget to eat? Did you forget to take your medicine?
Did you forget to take your medicine is a big one. If you're on any kind of medication, whether it's, you know, psychopathic medicine or something else, like if you don't take it, suddenly your body's like, what is going on? And it's going to send signals to your brain that like something is wrong. We need to fix this. And it might tank your mood.
Also, if you're starving and you just don't know how you're going to stop and get food or whatever, dude, order something from delivery on your credit card that day. Like, I'm not advocating going into debt for eating at work, but like sometimes I will be like, but I should have brought something. I should go get something, whatever. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to order some Jimmy John's. I don't care.
I'm so bad about that because I have I have very regimented budgets. And so I have like, my budget used to be so cute. I would give myself like $15 a week to eat out for lunch.
It's like one day.
Well, it's one day, right? And if I forgot my lunch 2 days, I'd be like, well, I already used it. I guess I can't eat food. And here's what always ends up happening is I end up spending it anyway, right? Like, because I'm starving.
Well, and you're going to overcompensate.
And I overcompensate. That's exactly right. So give yourself a realistic budget. Also, just eat food. Also, drinking water. So here's a statistic for you. I love the statistic because it makes me go like, what? 75% of Americans are dehydrated.
I would agree. I am dehydrated right now.
75%. Shannon, you teased me the other day for having my emotional support water bottle. I have
it's
this
so
like,
funny.
So
I'm surprised you're not holding it right now.
It's in my car, actually. I brought this instead. Look, it's a normal size. But I always have some kind of like water beverage with me. And I usually carry on this like 64-ounce water bottle that's metal. And so if it hits a doorway, it makes like the loudest clunk. playing.
I usually carry around a 64-ounce coffee.
You do. You
That's
drink a lot of caffeine.
not good
That's
for,
not going to hydrate
that's
you.
not good for hydration.
Anyone listening, coffee dehydrates you. So if you drink a lot of coffee, you need to drink more water to compensate.
So my friend has told me in the past, if I'm having like a really bad day and it's like, God, what am I going to do? She's like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go make the biggest cup of coffee possible. And then you're going to get the biggest glass of water possible.
Love that.
And then you're going to hit your
That's
day
Melissa.
running. Yeah.
Isn't it? Of course it is.
Yeah.
That's great advice though. It's so true. Like you might be so accustomed to not drinking water that you don't realize like that's what's causing it. You're just like, I don't know why. I'm just kind of in a bad mood. But when you drink a lot of water, you'll be like, oh, I have so much energy.
Do you ever go and get like a cup of nice cool water and you're like, wow,
water's delicious?
Have you guys heard about water? It's so good.
No, because I drink so much water, but I have so many friends. Listen to this. I'm not going to name this person, but I have a friend whose husband does not drink water.
Like ever?
Like refuses.
Wow.
Drinks exclusively wine and sodas.
Get yourself a really cool, like
get yourself a cool bottle.
Jug or bottle. That really helps. I got myself this like very fancy
splurge
like cup and I love it. And I've done the same thing for my kids and it doesn't take much to make them happy.
No.
They like to put like stickers on or whatever.
100%.
And they think it's so cool. My son actually, you know how like when so he's in 4th grade and they have to write poems and they're learning about like personification of objects and he wrote one about his water bottle.
Stop. Yeah. His emotional support water bottle. Yes. Oh my God. I love Ryland. What a star. I want to read that.
I'm going to find
Maybe
it.
That's
I'll show
an
it
end
to
segment
you.
for our next episode. We'll read Ryland's poem. Anyway, so yes, please drink water. And if you think like, I don't need water, I'm not thirsty, that's because your body is so accustomed to not getting water that it's made do. If you start to drink regular water, drink your 8 glasses a day. I know scientists have kind of said, we probably don't need a whole 8 glasses, but you know what it's not going to do? Hurt you. And yes, it's fine.
You're going to have to pee more, but you will adjust.
Okay, that's worth it.
It's also a nice little break to get up and go to the bathroom.
I love to go to the go pee and play on my phone.
And check my phone and just make sure everything's cool.
And take a second and be away from everybody in the office and just be like, okay, this is Grace time.
It's a good time to do some breathing.
Yeah. Oh, do your box breathing as you go to the bathroom. What a win. And what a good segue, because another thing that you might need to check up on, and this makes me giggle. Shannon knows there are 3 topics that make me extremely uncomfortable to talk about. They are money, and pooping.
Why would you bring up suicide?
Throw it in the episode.
Good God.
We can cut that if you want. But I don't like to talk about pooping. It makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know why.
Because it's
gross.
Weird.
I hate it.
Wow,
but
we've really done it now. We've gone there.
We've done a good job. But I think it's important to mention it because, listen to this, constipated people are 14 times more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety or depression.
What?
If you are not regular, you are more, like by a large margin, more likely to have depression and anxiety. So maybe look into that. Hey, do you know what helps with constipation? Drinking more water.
That's true.
Everything's connected.
That's
also,
true.
Prunes. My mother would always be like, did you eat your prune? I never ate a prune because gross.
Are you eating enough vegetables?
Fiber. And the thing is, I get it. A lot of people are like, I hate vegetables. They're gross. I won't judge you because I'm kind of the same way.
Not if you douse them in butter.
Or ranch.
Or cheese.
Or you put them in a smoothie. I love to put a ton of spinach.
Like spinach?
Yeah.
You don't even taste it.
You don't. I put it in a smoothie with like bananas and frozen berries, and then I'm just having a delicious treat, and I'm also getting a lot of fiber. Yeah. So please take care of that.
I think that's important of listening to your body, right? Like if you are really busy and you've just been eating, quote unquote junk food, which I don't necessarily believe in such a thing, but you've just been going hard on like the quick and easy stuff. Like,
basically, if you've been breaking your eating habits, right?
Your body is probably going to start craving something else. And it's okay to give it that. Like, it's okay to do the quick, easy stuff, but it's also okay to like eat something healthier because your body wants it.
Yeah. We've all had those days where you feel like you're like, I just need something green. Like I've been eating, like I think traveling. Yeah, traveling is a big one where you're outside of your usual habits. You're not eating as maybe balanced meals. Even if you're not the healthiest eater, it's still kind of like Shannon was saying, there's not really junk food and not junk food. It's more of like if your body is accustomed to a certain diet and you completely swap, especially if you're traveling and you're eating like fast food, which is
or even just like granola bars and like
tons
cookies
of
and like prepackaged stuff,
processed kind of that can make your body go, I don't know what's going on, and your body's gonna hang on to it, and it's gonna hurt your stomach, and you're gonna have trouble going to the bathroom.
Find something fresh.
So find some roughage. I like to use the word roughage.
Roughage.
And our last like body thing that we're gonna talk about is sleep. So we've talked before. I think we've done a whole episode on sleep and the importance of what sleep deprivation can do to you in all kinds of ways. But just to mention it one more time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So it shouldn't have said one more time because it will be the last. But sleep is so key. If you are having a really bad day and you only got 4 hours of sleep last
Yes.
night because you have a new baby or a new puppy or you are having nightmares or you have really bad insomnia or whatever your reason is, those things are definitely linked. There's just
I have
no way they're
not been sleeping well this week. I love my sleep. And I've not been sleeping well this week because my son has been having some night terrors. He's fine. Don't worry about it. He doesn't even know what's happening. But it's been really tough on me.
Yeah.
And I am just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I know, like, if I go and I get like a 15-minute catnap in my car, it's going to help. I've done that a couple days this week. And it helps.
Which is really important to acknowledge and to be aware of, because that kind of helps you release some of that pressure and like, I'm having a really bad day. I'm not doing a good job. It's me. No, it's not. You're just tired.
It helps you know where to place that blame,
Yes.
you know, for like, why is everything going wrong? I'm just having a terrible day. I'm so frustrated by all these emails. I'm not really frustrated by the emails. I'm frustrated because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And like you talked about crying at work, the only times that I cry at work or I break down, it's never about the thing that's being discussed. It's always because I am tired physically and emotionally from other stuff and my emotions are right under the surface. So I think just if I'm in the middle of that, having a bad day, just acknowledging that and knowing that, I've actually didn't really realize that for a long time. And now I can express it. It's like, I swear it's not about this thing. Can we touch base on this tomorrow? I am just exhausted and I don't think I can handle this right now.
I'm glad that you mentioned the crying at work too. And I'm going to say this, and I think we need to talk about it more. I'm so tired of like the weird stigma around it. PMS.
Yeah.
It is, I have a 2 to 3 day window every month without fail, every single month, every 28 days, where if you look at me the wrong way, I'm going to burst into tears. And there is literally nothing I can do about it. Like I've tried everything. I'm a grown-up woman. I think I'm in relatively good control of my emotions. I promise I'm not that upset about it, you know, but in that moment, everything is so close to the surface because my hormones are going insane and it is entirely out of my control. And I want to say this to any woman who is listening who may think, oh, like why, you know, feeling down on herself, right? I always thought of myself as like weak because this would happen every month and I couldn't control my emotions and it was my fault. I'd apologize to boyfriends, you know, or apologize to friends. I'd be like, I'm so sorry. Like, and stop apologizing. This is out of your control. And to anyone who's listening who's not familiar with periods, give them some grace. If you're a manager and you're, you know, you have a subordinate who's like, I'm, you know, maybe says, I'm sorry, I'm PMSing, or don't like track their cycles. That's freaking weird. But I just mean like if somebody says to you, don't react with like, oh, ew, and don't think, oh, well, they just can't hack it. Or like, oh, women, which I think is the worst. Oh, that makes me so mad when people are like, oh, we can have a woman president. She's going to get on her period and press the nuclear codes. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. She might cry a little more than a man, but whatever. Anyway.
Well, I think it's important to just accept that like crying is going to happen sometimes. And I know it is humiliating, you know, and it's so upsetting and it's so embarrassing, but like, it's okay. It happens.
Yes.
It's okay. You're gonna be okay. I think if you start taking care of yourself in all the other ways and get to the root of really why are you crying, you know, then you're gonna be fine.
And sometimes there won't be some deep thing that you extricate that, oh, this is why I'm crying. I've now so enlightened. Sometimes the answer is PMS. And if that is the case, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm saying this to myself 10 years ago because the shame that I've carried around my whole life for something that is out of my control and that is just as normal biologically as anything else is too great. So if you're listening to this, be nice to yourself. And I love you. Okay. And that's it. So just have a good day, guys. On that note, I hope
drink some water, listen to some fun tunes.
Yep. Eat some greens.
Remember that the whole rest of your day does not have to be bad.
Yep. Break it into quadrants and know that Shannon and I are proud of you and we think you're doing a great job.
You got it. Crushing it. I'm in a better mood now.
Are you?
I am.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
I did some deep breathing.
Yeah.
I drank some water.
Yeah. Are you going to vent in your journal later?
I probably am going to vent to my husband
later.
Your
journal? Oh, okay. That works too. All right, guys. I love you. We'll see you in a week.
Bye.
This has been a Blue Summit Supplies production. Good job, Larry.